The character of Iron Man has a reputation for being a self-proclaimed genius billionaire playboy philanthropist, an experienced superhero that can hop between dozens of suits, fight massive armies, and take on alien gods. But in 2008, audiences got to meet a less experienced Tony Stark, a hero whose suit could run out of power and had vulnerabilities. Tony Stark wasn't untouchable. There was an air of fragility he had, and the idea that our hero might fail was a realistic one. At least, realistic for a superhero movie. After the MCU has gone on for almost 20 years, I find myself returning to the 2008 Iron Man film more than most, and a huge part of that is the characterization and performance of the character Tony Stark, played by Robert Downey Jr. In the first Iron Man film, we're watching a new Iron Man, as it's the character's origin story. Tony Stark has to come up with solutions to problems on the fly. He has to adapt to situations. Iron Man is much more exposed to danger in this film, whether it's his suit failing on him and not working as planned, or it running out of power mid-fight. The idea of him having to use his brain to calculate how much power to use and when gives his fight at the end of the film some added tension that is sorely missed in later films. The thing is, a less experienced Iron Man is where I personally find the character to be the most interesting. When your character knows everything and feels almost infallible is when I get kind of bored. Characters like Batman can do this from time to time and it works, but that's due to his incredibly entertaining rogues gallery. In these films, Iron Man himself is the charismatic entertainer, and his villains are easily the worst part of all three films, so to see him be put in situations that he has to think his way out of are some of the best parts of this movie, and the best part of Iron Man 3. Tony's still learning the ropes of how to be a superhero, and he takes a real beating. I mean, he gets run over by a mom and their kids in a 2008 sedan. You just don't see that in later films or in superhero movies in general. I love that these movies aren't afraid to laugh at Tony as well as laugh with him. It's a great foil to the character's overconfidence.
I'm the best.
Not only does he get knocked around in this film, but you see it manifest on his suit. When Iron Man gets hit by a tank and climbs over the rubble, you see the scorch marks from the impact. The damage he takes when fighting shows up on his suit and helps the audience feel that Tony could actually be in danger. Look at the climax of Spider-Man 2002. Peter Parker is getting beaten to a pulp by the Green Goblin, and not only is the audience seeing this with the brutal action choreography, but the damage is being reflected in his suit. His eye lens is gone, his mask and suit are ripped to shreds, and he's bleeding. This visual representation is aligned with the narrative and helps audiences feel the tension the way the director wants them to. In later Iron Man films, Tony can hop from suit to suit. In this film, he's anchored to his suit, so its damage holds more weight. The way the suit works in this film is maybe the best in the series. Seeing all the different pieces spin and screw in and assemble themselves is extremely satisfying and feels tactile. Whether scenes were CGI or actual props on set, you can't really tell because the way the suit is constructed. It looks like it's really in the room. You can see all of the gears and pistons moving, and when he finally suits up in the Mark III, it's incredibly satisfying. What this film does better than either of its sequels, in my opinion, is it balances the time when Tony is in and out of the suit pretty much perfectly. In this film, the sequences of Tony experimenting and building his suits is not only a great vehicle for some of the best jokes in the trilogy, but you get to break up the pace of the film by intercutting Iron Man scenes with Tony scenes. At the start of the film, you get the incredibly tense cave scenes where Tony is building his suit, followed up by the crazy good catharsis you get with his revenge. Then when he gets back to the mainland, there's some great moments of acting from Downey. I love the press conference scene and basically every scene he has with Pepper. Their romance is just another way the film uses tension to keep the momentum going. Then we get more scenes of him tinkering with his suits, followed by his first flight with the Mark II, then more scenes of his romantic tension with Pepper, some political interrogation of Tony's impact on the world with his weapons and business talk with Jeff Bridges. The character the audience is starting to expect could have some ulterior motives. This is followed up with maybe the best part of the film, Iron Man's assault on the rogue militia that has been using his weapons in the Middle East, an amazing set piece and catharsis in its own right, and so on. It's just a great way to keep the audience engaged, and it helps that when Tony's in the suit, it's obviously entertaining, but when he's out of the suit, you're just as engrossed in what's happening. Let's look at the way a film like Iron Man 2 is structured. At the start, you get the parallel of Tony's suit building sequence in the cave, but this time you're seeing the film's main villain, Whiplash. In theory, this is a cool comparison to the first film, showing the different conditions our villain was brought up in compared to our hero, but it's better in idea than in execution. We cut to the Stark Expo, and then to the great scene of Tony being indicted in court, followed by scenes of Pepper and Tony, the introduction of the film's second villain, and then its first real action set piece. Now compare the racetrack set piece to the scene in Iron Man 1 where Iron Man liberates the village, or even the early cave escape scene. They don't hold nearly the same weight in their respective film, emotionally or tonally. There isn't the build-up that makes the action feel truly exciting or earned. After this, outside of the drunken War Machine party fight, you don't get another true action set piece for a whole hour, and by that point the film is wrapping up. Within that hour, you get dialogue scenes that slow down the pace dramatically, tons of forced exposition to lay the groundwork for Avengers, and scenes of Sam Rockwell and Mickey Rourke trying to maintain a working relationship. The film feels uneven. It feels like it has a strong opening and strong ending, with no real meat in the middle. Iron Man 3 gives us an Iron Man action scene in the start and a massive one in the end, and then in the middle it slows down and becomes very Tony focused, which was its intention, but it leads to a more lopsided viewing experience.
Neither sequel was able to truly nail the balance between Tony Stark and Iron Man, in my opinion. What makes the first Iron Man work is its focus.
We do have scenes where Tony's off screen and we cut to the main villain, but we aren't trying to empathize with him. These scenes are used to unveil the twist of the film and make us hate Ironmonger. The filmmakers knew that with about 2 hours and the story they were trying to tell, they only had enough time to fit so much into the script. This is where Iron Man 2 falls short, as it became incredibly overstuffed. Not only was it trying to kinda half-adapt the Demon in a Bottle storyline, where Tony suffers from being an alcoholic, but it also attempts to showcase two different villains while drawing parallels between the villains and the hero. It became bloated, and in my opinion, the first Iron Man film could not be described as bloated. Especially in the first 2/3, the film feels lean. Not to say that the story here is incredibly complex, but honestly, it didn't need to be. The film consistently leaves the viewer surprised and engaged, and although the third act of the film is easily its weakest portion, the actors are all so good and it's pretty brief, I find myself still enjoying it. The film can be just as fun in an office building as it is when our hero is being chased by a fighter jet and almost losing, and I think this is something the current MCU lacks. When seated for Captain America Brave New World, could you honestly tell me you were enthralled by the scenes of Cap and Falcon talking about the political conspiracy they were involved in? It just doesn't have the same weight. Maybe it's the immense talent that RDJ has with improvising and his charisma. Maybe it's the script. Maybe it's the strict Marvel Studios hand-holding directors have to deal with, or maybe it's all of the above.
The MCU has gone on to see incredible highs and became one of the biggest franchises ever, and I still love plenty of its later entries.
Infinity War is the peak of the series to me, and that came out 10 years after this film. But Iron Man just feels different. It has texture, it's focused, and has a real personality. It feels like a movie made by artists who had a real vision and got to execute it, not just a corporate movie made in the house style. Even when it's imperfect, the film is surprising and endlessly rewatchable. To me, it's a perfect example of what a comic book film can be when it lets its heroes be vulnerable, have flaws, and let their artists have creative control.
And when done right, that is something that will make me come back to a film for a long, long time. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.